Now, the greatest radio shows of all time.
Suspense.
The Shadow Node.
Washington calling David Harding, counter-spy.
Classic radio theater.
The Great Gildersleeve. Fibber McGee and Molly.
Dragnet. Gunsmoke.
The Lone Ranger.
Now, step back into a time machine with your host, Wyatt Cox.
Good evening, friends of the Inner Sanctum.
Robert Young stars as Father Knows Best from 71 years ago, January 31st, 1952, An Evening Out. And just to mention, if you've never heard Father Knows Best as opposed to seeing the TV show, you'll find it's a bit different. But we thank you for tuning in. On this Tuesday, this is the 31st day of January. We have 334 days remaining in the year. Confederate General Robert E. Lee became General-in-Chief on this date in 1865 in the American Civil War. 3M marketed Scotch tape for the first time in 1930. The Green Hornet radio show debuted on this date in 1936. In 1945, U.S. Army Private Eddie Slovic executed, the first American soldier since the Civil War to be executed for desertion. 1950, President Truman announced a program to develop a hydrogen bomb. 1957, 3 students on a junior high school playground in Pacoima, California, among the 8 persons killed following the mid-air collision between a Douglas DC-7 airliner and a Northrop F-89 Scorpion fighter jet above the San Fernando Valley section of Los Angeles. There is an episode of the CBS Radio Workshop, and I can tell you I've heard the show. It's not a particularly good quality recording, but it is tear-jerking. It was on this date in 1958 the first successful launch of an American satellite into orbit.
Cape Canaveral, Florida, and a final checkup for the 70-foot Jupiter C about to put the Explorer into orbit round the Earth. The success of the Russian Sputniks and the failure of America's Vanguard project must have been in the minds of all concerned as the moment for firing approached.
8, 7, 6, 5.
The United States is ready to try and place its first Earth satellite into orbit. And there is a sudden, tremendous burst of flame. We can see the Jupiter C missile on its way.
We may be sure that a great sigh of relief accompanied the Explorer as it soared away into outer space, exactly according to plan.
A BBC radio report of Explorer 1 going into orbit on this date in 1958. The Van Allen radiation belt discovered on this date in 1958. Ham the chimp traveled into outer space as a part of Project Mercury in 1961. After a 37-day pause, President Johnson ordered resumption of airstrikes in Vietnam on this date in 1966.
On this Monday morning in Vietnam, at my direction, after complete and thorough consultation and agreement with the government of South Vietnam, United States aircraft have resumed action in North Vietnam.
The Vietnam War would continue for a few more years. President Reagan spoke at a memorial service on this date in 1988, honoring the crew of the Space Shuttle Challenger who were killed at liftoff 3 days earlier. Over 10,000 were on hand at the ceremony.
Dick, Mike, Judy, Elle, Ron, Greg, and Krista, your families and your country mourn your passing. We bid you goodbye. We will never forget you.
The president went on to say, sometimes when we reach for the stars, we fall short, but we must pick ourselves up again and press on despite the pain. Howard Cosell retired on this date in 1992.
This is Howard Cosell saying goodbye.
After Cosell's wife died of a heart attack 2 years earlier, his health began to fail. He would die of a cardiac embolism 3 years later at the age of 77. President Clinton authorized a $20 billion loan to Mexico to stabilize its economy on this date in 1995. The child molestation trial of superstar Michael Jackson began in California on this date in 2005. Jackson himself would appeal to the public for a fair trial.
In the last few weeks, a large amount of ugly, malicious information has been released into the media about me. Apparently, This information was leaked through transcripts in a grand jury proceeding, where neither my lawyers nor I ever appeared. The information is disgusting and false.
Jackson was acquitted on all counts on June 13th, and he would never return to his Neverland Ranch. Passing away on this date in history, the inventor of FM radio, Edwin Howard Armstrong, author A.A. Milne, you remember his Winnie the Pooh works, also Samuel Goldwyn, the studio executive, and Cozy Cole. He was a great drummer. Also born on this date in history, composer Franz Schubert, writer Zane Grey, the delightful Eddie Cantor. When he could no longer really perform as a entertainer, he started doing radio and TV shows of his memoirs and talking about what went on behind the scenes in Hollywood. And while he was an outrageous comic and a good singer, I think some of the memories are always the best, aren't they? Tallulah Bankhead, born on this date in history, darling. One of her great radio shows that we will never hear because it ran 90 minutes long was The Big Show. I might try to split it, but boy, it would be hard to get even that across 2 hours. Gary Moore, who was a delight during his time with Jimmy Durante, but a fine entertainer, great MC. I've Got a Secret and his own show. Also Mario Lanza, born on this date. The fine actress Carol Channing, who was so supportive of music in school. She thought it was so very, very important. Writer-journalist Norman Mailer, actor James Franciscus, and Suzanne Plachette, who, for all her many roles, will probably be remembered as Bob Newhart's wife in the original Newhart. Now, from Airplane and Beverly Hills Cop, Jonathan Banks, 76. Casey and the Sunshine Band's Harry Wayne Casey, still performing at 72. Johnny Rotten of the Sex Pistols, 67 today. Fit Finlay. You remember him from WCW and WWE. His son, Dave Finlay, is performing in New Japan Pro Wrestling. The elder Finlay is 65 years old today. From Cocktail and Roadhouse, Kelly Lynch, 64. Actress Minnie Driver is 53. From Scandal, Kerry Washington, 46. And Justin Timberlake is 42. Those some of the people celebrating the 31st day of January is their birthday. If this happens to be your birthday.
Hi, we're the Four Freshmen, and we just want to say happy birthday to you.
And from 71 years ago today, January 31st, 1952, Robert Young, Father Knows Best, on this Tuesday, Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox here on your favorite radio station. Classic Radio Theater family, you know our friend Mike Lindell has a passion to help everyone get the best sleep of your life. He didn't stop by just creating the best pillow. He created the best bed sheets ever. They look and feel great, which means an even better night's sleep for me because, you know, I'm working like 67 hours a day. Now, Mike's offering the best deal on his Giza Dreams bed sheets ever. You can get a set of Giza sheets for as low as $29.98. You'll never want to sleep on anything else once you slept on a set of Giza Dream sheets. A special offer for you right now. You can get a set of Giza sheets for as low as $29.98. Call 1-800-928-4715. Use the promo code Wyatt. Or go to mypillow.com, use the promo code Wyatt. It's good on anything on the website. That number again, 1-800-928-4715. Use my promo code Wyatt. Thanks for tuning into Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. You will probably enjoy this radio program much more than Robert Young did. Robert Young was not a fan of the way this show was written or presented. He wanted a much warmer family relationship show, which the television show was. The radio show was more of a situation comedy. And that's what you'll hear in this episode of Father Knows Best. going back 71 years, January 31st, 1952.
Now listen to Father Knows Best, starring Robert Young as father. A half-hour visit with your neighbors, the Andersons. Brought to you by Crosley, makers of pace-setting products for happier living.
Crosley automatic television, oh boy.
Beautiful Crosley Shelvador refrigerators, the world's most convenient.
Wonderful Crosley automatic electric ranges.
Crosley Shelvador freezers, color-style radios, and many other leading home appliances. At this time, we wish to send out a call to the SPCFA, the Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Fathers in America. Come to a certain white frame house on Maple Street. Bring full emergency equipment, including large doses of sympathy. See a man named Jim Anderson. He's entering the house at this moment. Happy, eager, unsuspecting. Like this.
Margaret!
Where have you been, dear? You slipped out after dinner.
I had some business to talk over with Ed Davis. Margaret, listen to this. What do you say, you and I...
Father, where have you been?
Next door at the Davises. Margaret...
Father, you'll simply have to help me with these candles.
Candles?
Hiya, Dad.
Bud, I was...
Your father was talking, Bud.
He was talking to me.
I was talking to your mother. Do you mind if
I knew you were home, Daddy. I heard your voice.
That's more than I've been able to do. Kathy...
Daddy, if a farmer planted 6 rows of potatoes and 5 rows of corn...
What farmer?
Dad, if you feed 110 volts into a transformer...
What transformer?
I was here first. I was here first.
I have news for all of you. I was here first. Your mother and I was about to ask her something. May I continue?
Is it something important, dear?
Of course it's important. I had a great idea. Let's you and I go bowling tonight.
Bowling?
Bowling?
Bowling? Bowling?
I must be standing on Echo Point. I don't mind you kids listening while I talk to your mother, but...
Jim, it's sweet of you to think of it, but it's been so long since
Ed and Ethel Davis went bowling a couple of nights ago, and they had the time of their lives. Why don't we go?
Well...
There's no reason why we can't. All we have to do is call the bowling alley. It's such a simple thing.
I'd like to go, dear, but there's Kathy.
Bud and Betty are here.
I don't want to stay with them. Father, you have to help me make a candle tree.
Candle tree?
I have to put 9 candles together like a tree. It's for my sorority initiation.
How about my transformer, Dad?
Bud, what's this about a transformer?
Could you help me wire it up?
Daddy, you have to help me with my arithmetic problems. If a farmer planted 6 rows of potatoes...
It's a transformer for our doorbell.
And 5 rows of corn...
Kathy.
What doorbell?
You have to put 9 candles together like a tree. Daddy, what about the farmer?
What's the farmer doing in here?
He's planting candles.
Jim, listen.
I have a problem, Father.
I know. 9 rows of doorbells for your sorority transformer. Why can't anybody in this house talk all at once? I mean, one at a time.
Your door, Bud.
The doorbell's working all right, Bud. What do you need a transformer for?
For the doorbell on our clubhouse. When we get a clubhouse.
Bud, the front door.
I'm going.
Margaret, I came back from the Davises. All I wanted to do was...
Hello, Bud. Is Betty at home?
Sure, Mrs. Johnson. Come on in.
Oh, hello, Evelyn. Hello, Margaret, Jim.
Well, hello there.
Good evening, Miss Johnson.
Betty, Kathy.
Hello.
Excuse me for breaking in like this, but Charles came home with tickets for the concert tonight. Betty, we wondered if you'd like to come and sit with the twins.
Well...
They're 4 years old now, and they're not too much trouble.
I'm awfully sorry, Mrs. Johnson. I'd like to, but we have a sorority initiation tomorrow night, and I have so many things to do.
Oh, I understand.
I wish we could help you, Evelyn.
Oh, it's a problem whenever we want to go out. How I envy you and Jim, with your children old enough to be independent and do things for themselves. Oh, it must be wonderful.
Oh, it is.
Well, I'll just have to keep trying, I guess.
I hope you find someone.
Oh, I will. Come and see us soon.
We will.
Good night.
Night.
Oh, poor Evelyn. They're so tied down with those little boys.
What's tied down?
They're tied down. What about us? We've been tied down for 18 years. And now tonight, for once, I suggest you and I go bowling. And what happens? I run smack into a wall of transformers and farmers and candles and corn.
What's the matter, Dad?
Nothing, Bud. It's just that...
Well, Father, if we're in the way...
That's not what I said. It's simply that you kids are old enough to realize that your mother and I deserve a little time to ourselves. You have to learn to assume a few of your own responsibilities.
Do we have to start tonight?
Well, I can't think of a better time. Your mother and I are going bowling, and that's final.
Do I have to stay with Betty and Bud?
They're your brother and sister.
That's the trouble. Who'll help me with my candle tree?
Do it yourself, Betty. Find a book. Look it up in the encyclopedia.
How do I fix my transformer?
Look it up in the encyclopedia.
Where are we going, Jim?
Look it up in the encyclopedia. We were going bowling down to Harvey's Recreation Center.
Kathy, you run next door and see if you can spend the evening with Patty Davis.
Gee whiz. I'll never get the candles fixed.
What about my transformer?
Betty, why don't you call Janie Liggett? Maybe she can help you. And, Bud, you can take your transformer over to Joe Phillips' house. Now run along.
Jumping creepers.
What a life.
Well, there you are, Margaret. You see, all it takes is a firm stand. The children have been hanging on our apron strings, relying on us for everything.
Well, it's natural.
Certainly, up to a point. But they can't be fed with a spoon all their lives.
Yes, dear.
No more staying at home every evening, devoting every minute of our lives to the children. I'm glad I've taken a stand. From now on, we're going to be free. We're going to be young and gay again. We're going to get out and see people. We're going to have fun.
Well, I'm ready, dear. How do we begin?
You see, you're lost. You've been locked in so long you don't know how to be free.
All right, Warden.
You're like a bird out of the cage for the first time. You don't know where to fly.
Well, you take off first, and I'll follow.
Believe me, we'll have no trouble. I'm just glad we made the break before we forgot how to live, how to have a good time.
All right, I'm convinced. Let's fly.
You bet. I'll call the bowling alley, make a couple of reservations, and we'll be on our way. You just have to take the bull by the horns, that's all. Hello? Harvey's Recreation Center? This is Jim Anderson. I'd like to reserve an alley for 8 o'clock. They are? How about 8:30? 9? Nothing at 9 either. The phone is Riverside 430. Thanks very much.
What'd he say?
Well, all the alleys are reserved. They'll call us if there's a cancellation.
Well, we're back on the perch.
Oh, no, we're not. The bowling alley isn't the only place in town we can go. We'll go down to the townhouse, have late supper in the Crystal Room, dance and have a... Hello, this is Jim Anderson. I'd like to reserve a table in the Crystal Room for... Oh, it is? Well, thanks very much.
Well, that was a short flight.
They're closed for alterations. All right, we don't have to go there. There are plenty of other things we can do. Let's call the Smiths. We'll get up a foursome and...
The Smiths can't go, Jim. They have relatives visiting.
Oh? All right, then. Let's call the Phillips for an evening of bridge.
They're playing bridge with the Evans tonight.
Well, confound it, we don't need the Phillips or the Smiths. We can go out somewhere by ourselves, just you and I. We'll go to a movie. Hand me the paper. Let's see what's playing.
All right. Here's a nice double bill. Across the Arctic by Zeppelin and Life Among the Giant Lizards.
Let's see. At the Strand is Sitting Pretty. We've seen that.
What's at the Majestic?
Bambi and The Horn Blows at Midnight.
There's nothing playing that we haven't seen.
Well, there must be.
Is that you, Bud? It's me, Mommy. Mrs. Davis invited me to stay all night with Patty. We're going to have a keen time.
Kathy.
Where's my overnight bag, Mommy?
On the shelf in your closet. Well, Jim, what have you decided?
No movies in town. Margaret, Kathy didn't speak to me when she came in.
Oh, she's excited about going to the Davises.
Well, I suppose I was a little hasty, running the children out of the house. I certainly don't want them to feel that I'm trying to get rid of them or anything like that.
Oh, they understand, dear.
I guess I didn't realize how important we are to the kids, how much they depend on us for help and understanding and companionship.
Well...
Margaret, I'm going to be truthful. I couldn't go out this evening and leave them. I'm going to tell them we've changed our minds. We'll have a real nice evening at home.
That's fine, dear.
Has Betty gone over to Janie's?
No, she's upstairs.
Oh, Betty! Betty!
Yes, Father?
Come downstairs a minute. Do we have any popcorn, Margaret?
I think so.
We'll have popcorn. Play some cards.
What is it, Father?
Betty, your mother and I have changed our plans. We're staying home tonight.
But, Father...
If you have a problem with those candles for your sorority initiation, we'll work it out. You can always count on me. You know that.
But there's no reason for you to stay home.
There isn't?
I wouldn't think of denying you and Mother a little freedom. Besides, I'm going over to Janie Liggett's. Her cousin's visiting her, and he's a big fraternity man from Princeton. I've been dying to meet him.
But
he's going to help us with the candles. Bye, Mother. Have a good time.
Goodbye, dear.
Big fraternity man from Princeton. What does he know about arranging candles?
Don't be bitter, dear.
Who's being bitter?
Is that you, Bud?
Yeah, Mom.
Come in the living room, Bud.
What do you want, Dad?
I've been thinking over that transformer problem of yours, son. That's very interesting. Your mother and I decided not to go out this evening, so why don't you and I go down in the basement?
Oh, you don't have to stay home on my account, Dad.
That's all right. You kids come first. You can always count on your dad.
But it worked out swell. We called Joe Phillips' uncle. He's got an electric appliance store, and he's going to let us work on the transformer down there. He's got tools and everything.
But we have things in the basement.
Oh, he has twice as much stuff. You and Mom go ahead. Don't worry about me.
But, Bud...
I'm ready to go, Mommy.
Do you have your toothbrush and pajamas?
Sure. And my kickball.
Well, you can put them back in your room, kitten. Mother and I are staying home, so you won't have to go over to the Davises. We'll work on your arithmetic.
But, Daddy, Patty's going to help me with my arithmetic, and I'm going to show her about kickball.
Yes, but...
And when Patty helps on my arithmetic, I get A's. When you help me, I get a B.
Now, wait a...
I gotta go. Good night, Mommy.
Good night, Angel.
Good night, Daddy.
Good night.
The best laid plans. January 31st, 1952, Father Knows Best on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. The news from 71 years ago today follows these messages from your favorite radio station. Thanks for spending part of your Tuesday with us here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. We're listening to an episode of Father Knows Best, as it was originally broadcast on Thursday, January 31st, 1952. In the newspapers of that Thursday, 71 years ago, these were some of the headlines. President Truman said he would have his name withdrawn as a candidate in the New Hampshire presidential preference primary, but that this would not preclude his running for re-election. The president again denied to say whether he will be a candidate for another term or when he will announce his intentions. At his weekly news conference, Truman tried in vain to discourage questions on his plans, saying there were more important things to talk about. He said if he decided to run, he could get the nomination without going into any of the state's primaries. The president pressed for his attitude toward the action of James McPhail, a lumber dealer, in entering his name in the Democrat presidential primary in New Hampshire. The voting there March 11th will be the first of its kind in the nation this year. Truman said he saw about it in the paper, and he added his name would be taken out of the election. President Truman denounced Senator McCarthy, the Republican of Wisconsin, as a pathological and as a character assassin. The president let go at the Wisconsin senator at a news conference in response to questions about McCarthy's Senate speech earlier this week on Thalio Nash, a special White House assistant. McCarthy said Nash, a special assistant concerned with minority problems, had close associations with communists in the 1940s. Nash denied it. Snapping back, the president referred to Wisconsin senator as the pathological Mr. McCarthy. He said the attack on Nash, the same kind of attack McCarthy has made on all governmental workers, he does not like. Draft director Louis B. Hershey predicted a sharp increase in the number of men to be drafted between now and June 20th. Hershey, who is a major general, made the statement in testifying in support of universal military training legislation. Premier Ali Mar Pasha is ready to negotiate Egypt's dispute with Britain, that according to a Foreign Office spokesperson. Spokesperson said the new premier was prepared to accept any proposals which would satisfy Egypt's national aspirations. When he took office Sunday after King Farouk ousted the old Wallis government, Maher strongly supported Egypt's demands for evacuation of British troops and annexation of the Sudan under the Egyptian crown. President Truman and British Prime Minister Winston Churchill have agreed that their two governments will consult on possible retaliation against the Chinese. British and American authorities said Thursday no strong guarantee was given during the Big Two meeting at the White House. The new explanation contradicts the belief widely held after Churchill's visit in Washington that Britain had firmly pledged support of U.S. air attacks on Red China in the event of any truce trickery. This belief based in part on Churchill's own speech to a joint session of Congress, in which he said that breach of a Korean truce would bring prompt, resolute, and effective action. Meanwhile, the British Prime Minister faces a parliamentary vote of confidence Thursday on his Conservative government's super-austerity program to cure Britain's economic ills. The Labour opposition party denounced the Conservation proposed cuts Thursday in the welfare state, and they challenged Churchill to a vote of confidence. Well, the man who accidentally uncovered a coal mine in his cellar in Pottsville, Pennsylvania, can't use the coal because he has a stoker-fed furnace. Elmer Evans says the coal in the mine requires too much time and effort to reduce to stoker size. He discovered a 150-foot tunnel with a 70-foot spur while enlarging his basement. The coal mine will be used properly, though. It's a good place to dump the dirt from the cellar enlarging project. Those some of the day's top news stories as reported in the newspapers of Thursday, January 31st, 1952, on your radio, Father Knows Best, which continues now on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox.
That's gratitude for you. You give the best years of your life to the kids, bringing them up through the mumps and measles, working like a dog for them. Then just when they're old enough to be companions to you, they cast you aside like an old shoe.
Now, Jim.
You're not even good enough to do their arithmetic. They'd rather be down in some two-bit electric shop, simpering over some lame brain with a fraternity pin.
Well, you were the one who insisted we go out tonight. You chased them out of the house.
I didn't chase them out. I only suggested.
All right, you suggested.
Fine loyalty.
Jim, the children didn't realize we couldn't find anything to do.
Margaret, that's not the reason we decided to stay home.
What was the reason?
Well, it was... Why do you ask me? You know very well.
No reservations at the bowling alley. No movies we haven't seen.
I don't know where you got the silly idea we have no place to go. There are dozens of things we can do. 100 places we can go.
Well, good. Let's go.
All right, we'll go.
Where are we going?
We're going out.
Out where?
Any place you want to go. What would you like to do?
What would you like to do?
Doesn't matter to me.
Doesn't matter to me either.
This is like playing badminton.
Jim, I have no ideas. You said there were a dozen things we could do. Now you tell me.
All right, we can... there's the... Or we could... How about... I guess you wouldn't care about doing any of those things.
No, I guess not.
Well, get the cards. Let's play canasta.
January 31st, 1952, Father Knows Best. The conclusion next on this Tuesday Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. We'll start off on a brand new month on Wednesday's Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, an episode of the lineup, Wally Mayer, Bill Johnstone, starring in The Grocery Store Matter. 8 robberies of all-night stores in the last month. While a police stakeout's in place, a grocery store is held up, and the manager's son shot and killed. The lineup on tomorrow's Classic Radio Theater, but now the conclusion of Father Knows Best, January 31st, 1952.
You can't always tell how a good idea is going to turn out. In the white frame house on Maple Street, Jim Anderson had what seemed to be a beautiful idea. A free evening for Margaret and himself to do just as they pleased. There were dozens of exciting and interesting things to do, Jim insisted. So they chose one, like this.
Let's see. That gives me 6,530 points and game.
I never did like canasta.
You were the one who suggested we play, dear.
How do you like this? 2 people, young, almost, with friends, a car, 1,000 things we could do. Sitting here at home playing canasta.
Well, dear, I'm ready to go.
Let's not go through that again.
Still worrying about the children?
Worrying? Why should I worry about them? If their parents no longer mean anything to them, all right.
Jim, it's not that serious.
Isn't it something of a shock to you, Margaret, to discover that you're not only unnecessary, but obsolete?
What are you talking about?
Bring home the money. That's all I do. Cook the food. That's all you do. Face it, Margaret. You and I can be replaced by a bank and a hamburger stand.
Oh, fine. I don't even rate a good restaurant.
Put a little fire on the hearth. We'll huddle together in our declining years. Alone and forgotten.
Telephone, dear.
I'll get it. Hello. Yes, this is Jim Anderson. You have? Great. We sure will. Yes, sir. Margaret!
Jim, what in the world?
That was the bowling alley. A couple of reservations just canceled out. There's an alley open right now. I told him we'd be right down.
Well, for an obsolete bank, you're showing a lot of life.
Don't be ridiculous, Margaret. We have to hurry.
What happened to the huddling hearth and the declining years?
Margaret, they won't hold the alley all night.
Jim, stop dragging me. We have to let the children know we're going.
They know, Margaret. It was clearly understood before they left that you and I were going out.
Well, I think we should at least leave a note. Give me your pencil, Jim.
All right. Here. Gosh, an evening out. We could have done this long ago if we'd had my way. It's simply a matter of letting the children know that we have a right to live, too. They just take it for granted that we have to be at their beck and call 24 hours a day. Have you finished?
Jim, I can't think when you're talking.
What do you have to think about? Just say, dear kids, we've gone out.
If they come home and we're not here, they'll know we've gone out.
Then why write a note?
Well, I want to leave something. Dear Betty and Bud.
What you don't realize, Margaret, is that the children aren't babies anymore. They're old enough to get out and do things on their own. It's better for them if they feel we're not hovering over them every second. Let them develop a little independence. What have you put down?
Dear Betty and Bud, your father and I...
All you have to do is come right out and say, you're old enough to go out and do things for yourself without relying on your...
Jim.
Margaret, haven't you written that note yet? We could have been at the bowling alley.
Jim, please stop talking and don't pace up and down.
You'd think you were writing a play or something.
There. Dear Betty and Bud, your father and I have gone bowling. If you're hungry when you come home, there's chocolate cake in the pantry and 2 custard eclairs. There's cold roast and fresh milk in the refrigerator. All right, let's go, Jim.
Maybe we should have a bite to eat before we go.
Now, you've been standing here screaming to go.
All right, get your things. I just thought you might be hungry.
I'm ready to go.
So am I. We're off, Margaret, as free as the...
Daddy!
Oh, no.
In here, Kathy.
Daddy, can you fix a window in a garage? Quick!
Fix what window in what garage?
In the Davises. Patty and I were practicing kickball.
Kathy, your mother and I were just about
But Daddy...
Let her finish, Jim.
Margaret, I told the bowling alley we'd be right down. Go ahead, Kathy.
Well, Patty and I were practicing kickball before we started our arithmetic, and Patty kicked the ball through the garage window.
Well, if Patty broke the window, why do I have to fix it?
Well, Patty was afraid if she told her father she did it, she'd get spanked.
Oh?
So we told him I did it.
But...
I knew I could count on you to fix it.
But, Kathy...
You said I could always count on you.
Margaret.
Don't look at me, dear.
All right, I'll do it first thing in the morning. Come on, Margaret.
You gotta do it right now. The snow will come in the window. I told Mr. Davis you'd do it.
But, Kathy, I don't have anything to cover a window.
Isn't there something, Jim?
I could go over and lean against it.
You'd get cold.
Oh. Call the bowling alley, Margaret. Tell them we'll be a couple of minutes late.
What are you going to do, Jim?
I'm going down in the basement. Maybe we have some tar paper.
You going to put that on instead of glass, Daddy?
Yes, Kathy.
You can't see through it.
I know that. This is temporary. Call the bowling alley, Margaret. This will take me about 5 minutes, and then we'll go.
But tar paper is black, Daddy. Their garage is white.
We'll paint the garage.
Really?
No.
Jim, what's the number of the bowling alley?
What?
The bowling alley.
Call them up.
Hello, Mother. Where's Father?
He's in the basement. Jim!
What?
Come up quick, Father. Where are you phoning, Mother?
Well, your father wants me to...
For Pete's sake, what's going on?
What are you doing, Father?
I'm looking for tar paper. Margaret, did you call the bowling alley?
I don't have the number, Jim.
What's written down there somewhere?
Oh, dear.
Father, you've got to help me.
Betty, I thought you were Janie Liggett.
I was, but we're in a mess.
Well, the line forms on the left. Kathy's ahead of you.
But this is important. Look at this throw rug. It belongs to Janie Liggett's mother. It's practically priceless.
We're not buying any rugs.
Here's the tar paper, Daddy.
Kathy, take that downstairs.
What's that, Daddy?
It's a rug.
Are you going to put that over Mr. Davis's window?
No, Kathy.
Margaret, have you called the bowling alley?
Jim, I'm looking for the
Look at the candle wax on this rug, Father. Janie's cousin thought he was so smart, and he spilled wax all over it, and Janie's mother is furious, and Janie's father was fit to be tied, so I brought it home. I knew you'd find a way to get the wax off of it.
Betty, your mother and I...
Father, you promised you'd never let me down. Janie's positively desolate.
I'm a little desolate myself.
Let's go fix the window, Daddy. He's going to work on the rug first, aren't you, Father?
Broken windows, wax on rugs.
You said we could always count on you. You did, Daddy.
All right. Margaret, look up the number of the bowling alley. Tell him we'll be about 15 minutes late.
All right, dear.
Let's go, Daddy.
Kathy, you find a hammer and some tacks. And while you're doing that, I'll see what I can do with this rug.
Where's the hammer?
In the basement with the tools.
Look at the way that wax soaked into the rug. Do you suppose gasoline would lift the nap?
Yes, it'd lift the roof of the house, too. We'll have to use cleaning solvent.
We can't do that in here, Father. We'll have to take it out in the garage. Here's the hammer, Daddy.
Oh, Kathy, that's not a tack hammer. That's a mallet.
What hammer do you want?
The little one.
Do you suppose we could wash the rug, Father?
We probably could. When it was dry, we could use it for a doily.
Daddy, I can't find the hammer. Don't you know some way to clean it?
Well...
Daddy!
Never mind, Kathy.
I was so sure you could do it, Father.
How are you getting along, Jim?
Oh, fine. Rugs, hammers. Must be the girls are just naturally helpless.
But you told us to come to you.
A man has to be a carpenter, rug cleaner, magician. What did they say at the bowling alley, Margaret?
They're waiting, Jim.
Thank heaven Bud is at least able to do things for himself. Down there in that electric shop, working on his transformer, figuring out his own problems.
I'll get it, dear.
I'll answer it, Margaret. You take over the rug for a minute. All right, I'm coming. Hello?
Mr. Anderson?
Yes?
This is Fred down at the bowling alley.
Well, it'll be a few minutes. We've been delayed.
Oh, take your time, Mr. Anderson. We've had to close down the alleys for a while. Our lights have gone out.
Lights gone out?
The whole block is dark. No bowling unless you want to bring a flashlight.
All right. Thanks for calling.
Goodbye.
Who was that, Jim?
Fellow at the bowling alley. Their lights are out.
Daddy, aren't we going to fix the window? I was sure that was Janie Liggett's mother calling. What am I going to do, Father?
Betty, give your father a chance to think.
I wish Bud were here. He's the only one who goes along quietly, isn't always getting into some confounded...
If that's Janie's mother.
Probably the bowling alley have their lights on again.
Daddy, if it's Mr. Davis...
Hello?
Dad, this is Bud.
Oh, hello, Bud. Where are you?
Down in the basement at the electric shop. Can you come right down?
Come down there? What for?
Well, a fuse blew out, and we didn't have another one, so we put a penny in it. It blew out the lights on the whole block.
Oh, no.
The man came over from the bowling alley next door. He's pretty sore.
Oh, Bud.
Can he come down, Dad?
All right, stay right there.
We have to. We can't see anything.
All right.
Thanks, Dad. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
What happened to Bud?
They mixed up the fuses in the electric shop, burned out the lights, put the bowling alley out of business.
Oh.
I have to go down there to rescue him.
But, Father, the rug. What about the window, Daddy?
Children, please.
Phones, doorbells.
I'll go, dear.
Father, what am I going to tell Janie's mother? What am I going to tell Mr. Davis?
Come in, Evelyn.
Oh, hello, Mrs. Johnson.
Oh, hello, Evelyn.
Well, I couldn't find anyone to stay with our twins, Mr. Anderson.
Oh, that's too bad.
But I thought someone should use these 2 tickets to the concert tonight, so I brought them over to you and Margaret.
For us?
Yes. You're the only people I know whose children don't need them anymore.
Mrs. Johnson, if you only knew.
It's a few minutes later in the white frame house on Maple Street, and Jim Anderson, with quite a collection of problems himself, is on the telephone trying to help a certain Mrs. Johnson with hers. Margaret and Mrs. Johnson are in the kitchen awaiting the results. Like this.
Jim's calling the Bennetts down the street, Evelyn. I'm sure they'd love to have the tickets.
Don't they have children?
Oh, yes, but theirs are married.
Oh, how wonderful it must be to have raised your family and then settle down to a life of your own.
Yes, they can go where they please anytime. They're absolutely free.
Oh, how I envy them.
Well, I called the Bennetts. They can't go.
Why not, Jim?
They're sitting with their grandchildren.
Join us again next week when we'll be back with Father Knows Best, starring Robert Young as Jim Anderson with Roy Barkey's orchestra. In our cast were Rhoda Williams as Betty, Gene Vanderpyle, Ted Donaldson, Norma Jean Nilsson, and Edith Simmons. So until next week at this same time, good night and good luck from the Crosley division of the Avco Manufacturing Corporation, America's leading manufacturer of today's pace-setting refrigerators, television and radio sets, electric ranges, home freezers, and many other products for happier living. Father Knows Best was transcribed in Hollywood and written by Paul West.
I liked that show. I thought it was humorous, and it also dealt with a lot of things that, they were typical family situations. Father Knows Best, January 31st, 1952, here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Can I ask you to go visit mypillow.com? Our promo code is Wyatt. Pick up anything there. Save on anything on the website. We would appreciate you showing Mike Lindell that you appreciate him helping you get a better night's sleep. Also, visit my friend Ted at RadioMemories.com. At RadioMemories.com, you can acquire programs on cassette, CD, or flash drive on your computer. That's RadioMemories.com. And, of course, my webpage, which is classicradio.stream. Stream our shows, learn about building a classic radio collection of your own. You can contact me there, find our social media links, and if you like supporting the program, you can buy me a coffee. The Buy Me a Coffee money does not buy me coffee, but what it does is it helps us acquire additional classic radio collections, and it also helps us keep our distribution channels up and running. That is at classicradio.stream. Classicradio.stream. Thanks for tuning in. Have yourself a great Tuesday, won't you please? And the best thing you can do is tell all your friends the great radio shows are right here at this spot on the dial. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox right here on your favorite radio station.